O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command, car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
The Niagara region is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations such as the Hattaway-Wendourok, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The city of Port Colborne stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live.
Okay, Council. Item 4 is the adoption of the agenda. There is one addendum item to the agenda. It's Appendix A for Report 2025-58, the 2024 Statement of Council Remuneration and Expenses, which was updated with a new chart. If I could have Councillors Ackling and Bagu move the Council agenda dated March 25th, 2025 be confirmed as amended. Questions? All in favor? Carried. Any disclosures of interest this evening? Seeing none. We have one proclamation, World Autism Day. If I could have Councillors Bruno and Elliott move that therefore I, Mayor William C. Steele, do hereby proclaim April 2nd as World Autism Day while committing to embrace awareness and acceptance today and every day throughout the year. All those in favor? That's carried. No presentations, no delegations. We'll get right into the Mayor's report. Niagara Centre Member of Parliament Vance Badu was here Saturday morning to announce $19.25 million to improve water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure in our city. The announcement marks more great news for Port Colborne. You'll recall MP Badu was here just a few weeks ago with $4.3 million for housing, the Housing Accelerator Fund to expedite the construction of 128 homes within our community. The $19.25 million funding supports building capacity, ensuring the city has the necessary infrastructure to accommodate future housing needs and economic expansion. Many thanks to Gary Long and Greg Higginbotham for their over and above efforts on the application for this funding. On behalf of Council and the city, we thank the Government of Canada for investing in the growth and development of Port Colborne. It was not as bitterly cold as last year, but the wind was a little wild Monday morning as we celebrated the opening of the Welland Canal for the 2025 shipping season. We welcomed almost 200 people to Lock 8 Gateway Park. That's remarkable because we had to change the day of the event from Saturday to Monday as high winds and ice kept ships anchored in Lake Erie. When the winds diminished Saturday afternoon, we heard from Captain Nathan Mayo aboard the Algo Nova that he'd be in Lock 8 about an hour after entering the Welland Canal. Our communications manager, Jasmine Peasel-Graham, raced to City Hall to fetch the top hat to be presented. She picked up the logbook from Tammy Nail, the assistant curator at the Port Colborne Historical Marine Museum. The museum has kept the register signed by captains of all the first downbound ships since the 1970s when the Port Colborne Top Hat event began. Once she was secured, we climbed aboard and met Captain Mail. We presented the top hat, he signed the register, we took some photos, and within about 10 minutes we disembarked and the ship was on its way down the canal. The captain and crew are already way up the St. Lawrence River and they're expected to reach their destination, Sept Île, by 11 p.m. tomorrow. I share the behind-the-scenes view of all the elements that have come together on an opening day of the canal and for the ceremony we present to celebrate it. We coordinate with the operations at the Seaway to determine which vessel will be the first downbound in the canal. Sometimes it times up perfectly, Other times weather and other factors play a huge role. Once the Seaway identifies which ships are due to enter the canal from the lake, we communicate with the shipping company and set up the presentation. I'm very proud of our staff from Public Works, the museum, the library, our events and communications teams who work to plan the event and show up before dawn to set up. And we have some civilian partnerships to make this event happen. The Fair Trade Town Committee organizes breakfast with its partners Bodner's Market for sausage and Kevin Eklund of the Smoke and Buddha for the pancakes. Rosemary and Greg from Canal Side lent us some essential outdoor equipment, and Crystal Lee Gorman knocked it out of the park singing our national anthem. The vicar from St. James and St. Brendan's Anglican Church delivered a blessing for the sailors, and Amherst Crane chipped in to cover expenses for breakfast, and our maple syrup was made just a week ago by Debbie and Trent Crow at their Sugar Bush in Wainfleet. This year we were delighted to include Brian Kahn, Niagara Region's Indigenous Relations Advisor, who opened our event with a gracious and insightful welcome. In addition to all their contribution, we schedule special guests to speak on the significance of the canal. They included Vance Badaway, Representative Mike Haynes from MPP Jeff Birch's office, and Seaway Operations Supervisor Nathan Infantino. It takes many hands to present the top hat ceremony, and no matter the obstacles, the wind or the weather, we come together as a community to celebrate the start of the new shipping season. And I thank all of you for your contribution and participation. I thank the many people who braved the cold and wind Monday morning to come out and enjoy the breakfast. The CAO and I attended the Seaway celebration this morning at Lock 3 Museum in St. Catharines. The McAsphalt Tug and Barge was the first upbound ship that they celebrated. It's always a great event, a little bit more formal than ours, but I'll tell you right now, it's not as fun as ours, believe me. It's indoors, and I told all those guys down in St. Catharines that we're a lot tougher here in the south end. We can have ours outside. The lineup of our community concerts was announced last week, and it looks like another great summer of music in the park. The series opens June the 20th with Shania Twain, the Shania Twain tribute. Every time she's played in Port Colborne, it's standing room only. And we'll be singing along to 60s and 70s hits played by Hot Wax Meltdown on July the 4th. The Bomb will play a retro 80s live experience on July the 18th. Local favorite, Strictly Hip, plays the best of the Tragically Hip on August the 15th. The ever-popular Caverners, our Beatles tribute band, their show is on August the 29th. And on September the 12th, to wrap up the series, will be the Taylor Swift tribute, Taylor's Story. It will be great to see everyone again at the concerts on Saturday nights this summer. The concerts are free. All we ask is you bring a non-perishable food item for the Reach Out Center. Huge kudos and congratulations to our communications and events team for winning 3 provincial awards. They're all up here on my desk this evening for the Canal Days Marine Heritage Festival from the Festivals and Events Ontario organization. We were first in Best Promotional Campaign. We had the Sponsor of the Year, Geo Rail, and we were named a Top 100 event in Ontario. The awards are a testament to the passion, creativity, and dedication that go into making Canal Days such an incredible event year after year. So on behalf of Council, thank you to our amazing Canal Days team, our sponsors, our partners, and to you, the community. We are grateful for you and our crew of loyal and eager volunteers. Well done, Brian, Jasmine, Greg, and your teams. And if you do not currently have a doctor, now is the time to register. There are 35 doctors across Niagara taking on new patients. Please visit the Niagara Region website. There is a page called Find a Doctor, which explains all that you need to know. Go through that, and hopefully we can get you in to see a doctor. And that concludes my report this evening. Any questions, Council? Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. Not really a question, but maybe you were apprised of this, but I wanted to let staff know. At the announcement on Saturday morning for the $19,250,000, I had occasion to talk to the MP's assistant who said, of all the applications put in, ours was the best application in terms of clarity, purpose, content. All of it was top notch. So I'm sure it's a lot of things that go into who gets those monies. But I think certainly if you get a reputation as filling it in to that quality. So to the CAO and to staff, thank you very much for that. I thought it was important that we pass that on to you guys and to the public, that, everything we do, we're pushing above our weight, and quality goes a long way, so kudos to you. Thank you,
Great.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. The Niagara Regional Councillor is on hiatus for the federal election, so any regional questions, I can take those to take back. Councillor Aquilina.
Thank you, Mayor. I have two, both in regards to Miller Road. The first one, I'm not sure if it's regional or if it's MTO, but when I drove by today, it appears that at the intersection of Miller Road and Highway 3, there are new green signs pointing to Fort Erie and pointing to Dunnville. So I think it's Dunnville. I'm pretty sure it's at Dunnville, but not a flashing sign or flashing light at the stop sign, which I've been trying for, but I think having that might deter some people from going through the stop sign. The other...
Well, just on your first one, so the sign you're talking about is located on Miller Road as you're approaching the intersection?
So it's on both sides of the intersection at Highway 3.
But they're on Miller Road, is what I'm asking. Are they on Highway 3 or are they on Miller Road?
Nope, they're on Miller Road.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. Saying
Yep.
east and west.
Yep. So either you're coming from Killallie or you're going to Killallie.
Yep.
It's there.
Okay.
So I don't know if that was the region or MTO that.
Probably MTO.
Okay. The second one for Miller Road is just a little past the train tracks from Forks Road, heading to Third Concession. There's a strip on the road, mainly the strip heading into Port Colborne, where it's atrocious, the potholes there, like so much so that you have to drive on the other side if you can to avoid them. The resident who contacted me had contacted the region, and it's budgeted for 2027. I'm asking if there's a possibility that we can put some pressure on the region to bump that up, because I don't think that there's any way that any sort of filling in of those holes is going to last for 2 more years. So whoever wants to take that one.
I was watching Curtis because I know he was making notes. So Curtis, are we aware of this now, or if they contacted you? I know it's not our road, but if they contacted you or the department with regards to any speeding up of any work with that yet?
Yeah, through the mayor, this came to my attention earlier today. So I can reach out to the region and have a conversation with them. I can't make any promises, but I'm happy to have that conversation.
Okay, we'll let Curtis deal with his staff down there that he deals with, but I'll also bring it up to the director. Okay. Okay, I got Councillor Beauregard and then Councillor Baggett.
Yeah, through your worship, just back up on those points. I drove down Miller Road going towards Port Colborne, and it was really bad. So I highly suggest when you're talking to the region that you tell them to go down that road and go on it. Like I was in Costa Rica over January, and those roads are atrocious. This is getting up there. Like I've never seen a road so bad.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You mentioned our Niagara Regional Councillor leave of absence for the election, I guess. So what are the plans to fill the vacancy, if any, for Niagara Regional Councillor?
Well,
We do nothing for
you're
30 days?
going to have to wait till after the election, Councillor, because we won't know until the election results.
So there's only one vote for our municipality regional council until after the election?
Correct.
Okay.
So he's taking a
Yeah.
38-day leave of absence.
I just thought we would fill in the 38 days.
Can't, because he's legally still
Yeah.
the member, but he has decided to take a leave of absence.
Okay.
There's a number of regional councillors that are actually running in the election, and I believe they've all done the same thing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, you're welcome. Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to jump into the Miller Road issue, the one I take it often. Curtis, when you're talking to the region, I think because whether they decide to do it this year or hopefully sooner than what they got planned, they need to put some notices up there for people coming. We probably drive that quite a bit, so we know you cannot safely drive the speed limit on that side of the road. It just isn't safe, so they need to reduce that section. I think the speed limit in that section with some pretty good signs so people aren't surprised when they get to it, because it's immediate as soon as you hit that section. There isn't a good spot in the whole thing.
Okay.
That's it, Mr.
Thanks,
Mayor.
Councillor. Nothing further? Okay, thank you. Under consent agenda, Council, Councillor Borgard has lifted one item, item 11.4A. It's correspondence item that will be considered as item 12.2. Any other items to be lifted? Seeing none. If I could have Councillors Beauregard and Bodnar move that Council hereby approves the listed consent items on March 25th, 2025, and that the consent items be approved on the recommendations as contained therein. All in favor? That's carried. We have one set of minutes this evening. Oh, that's right. Yeah, so let's go to 12.1. Yes. So we're on to item 12, 12.1. Councillors. So 12.1 is the future of healthcare at Port Colborne, midpoint public engagement results 2025-71. If I could have Councillors Hoyle and Bruno put this on the floor, and then we can have staff do their presentation. Okay, Mr. Bowles.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, and for everybody in the audience tonight. I'll start off the presentation, and I certainly think Jasmine, our manager of communication, for all the work she's done in this engagement, and she'll walk us through what we heard throughout. So I think we have a clicker, and so just as a big, overview that I'll provide to everybody is we started this process on December 3rd. That recommendation came forward to look at what to do with the property, what to do with Niagara Health's question to us if we should put $6.2 million into purchasing that property. We had that conversation with respect to the Lockview Medical Group. The Lockview Medical Group is offering to move into there, and I think we had that conversation at the time that it would be for a nominal fee and they would pay the common area fees. Then at that meeting, Council directed us to go back and look at a public communication process. We did. We came back for January 28th. Council approved that process and we moved forward with it. That process included 5 key areas. We really wanted to inform the community, gather feedback, promote inclusion, identify concerns and opportunities, and we wanted to ensure transparency throughout. That process included a number of actions, everything from online to in-person, virtual, and this meeting that we're having today. When we look at some of the stats that we heard, and I'll just provide a couple quick stats that we heard between January 29th and March 10th. And I just make sure everybody knows that the survey is still open. In fact, if somebody wants to fill out the survey today, it's open at the front counter today, and we have people there that can help you. So a couple stats, and I really want to point this out. There was 11,000 open field comments. There was an enormous amount of feedback we received from the community, And that feedback, if you haven't seen it already, is now posted online. Our communications team has tried to go through and group all of that feedback into, I'm going to say, sections, components that we'll go through today. But the reality is, when we have a conversation about the recommendations and the next steps, we would look forward to those next steps to help us move through all of that feedback. It's a lot of feedback in a short amount of time for the communications team to go through. The other real interesting stat that I just want to point out is about 64% of people that started this survey completed it. It was a 16-minute on average survey. And just for statistics, Councillor Beauregard always asks us something about statistics, and that about 45% of people normally would complete a survey this long. So the level of engagement on this topic was very high to have 64% of people actually make it through the whole survey. Just a quick highlight, open house. We did a number of open houses. Some people in the audience today, I saw you at the open houses and we had an opportunity to speak. We had about 87 individuals that came to those open houses. We also did town halls. We did them in person and virtual, as well as the in-person one was also, I guess, live streamed as we went forward. I would like to, and you can see the gentleman there, and I think we all would like to thank to Enterprise. They did a great job moderating the open house, and for, at the time, Deputy Mayor Bodner at the time for stepping up and being part of that front with us. So having moved through that, we also did pop-up engagements. We went out and we had conversations with individuals and tried to help individuals fill out the survey at different locations, including pharmacies and grocery stores, as well as talk to some of the working groups. We have had a chance to talk to the social determinants of health, the Mayor's Youth Advisory Group, and I think as Jasmine goes through, she will talk to us about the makeup of who did the survey. And I think the Youth Advisory Group was gave us some great feedback to how to get some more youth to do the survey going forward, as well as the Seniors Advisory Committee, and we have a future meeting with respect to that. So having listened to everything that we've received, and I think as you go through the results today, I'm not going to go through the recommendation in great length, but I do find it useful sometimes to know where the recommendation is before we go through the feedback that we hear. Once Jasmine's done going through the feedback, there is a lot of feedback to go through. We'll circle back and we'll talk a little bit about the recommendation and the path forward. So at that note, I'm going to step to the side and let our communications head walk us through the feedback. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Brian. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to talk to you about the engagement results we've gathered so far. So as a reminder, we're talking about results that we got between January 29th and March 10th at all of the events that Brian mentioned, and also through the two surveys, the online survey and the paper survey. And I'll just emphasize again, 11,000 comments was a lot for us to go through, so I don't want anyone to think that we've captured every single piece of feedback right now. This is kind of a cursory look, and we'll look at additional engagement and additional analysis of the information as we go forward. So the first question I'll talk about a little bit is who we heard from. And you can see on the graph on the screen, about 86% of the respondents to our survey are actually from Port Colborne. And if we look a little bit further, we see 98% of respondents coming from Port Colborne, Wainfleet, or Welland, or Fort Erie. So very much local response to the survey, which is exactly what we wanted. We also asked respondents how old they were, just so that we knew who we were engaging with and who we might need to do more engagement with in the future. So you can see on this graph, we actually have 0 respondents from the 18 or younger group. And that's of the people who told us how old they were. So not everybody answered this question. But if they told us how old they were, we don't have anybody in that category. And we don't have very many in the 19 to 29 category. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can see a Statistics Canada breakdown of the percentages of the different generations in Port Colborne. So you can see it says 18% of Port Colborne residents are 18 or younger. Obviously, we don't expect all 18% to fill out the survey. Those are including children, but we do think that we should have more than 0. So looking at this, we know that we need to do more engagement with younger generations. As Brian said, we did talk with the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee, and they did make some really great recommendations around actually going into Lakeshore and Port Colborne High School, meeting with some of the students and or groups that might be interested in this kind of topic. So that's something that we can absolutely pursue further. So this slide shows 8 topics that I'm going to go through one at a time to go through the different pieces of feedback that we gathered. So first I'm going to talk about the closure of the Port Colborne Urgent Care. Then we'll talk about the local share contribution to Niagara Health, or that's the $6.2 million request from Niagara Health. We'll talk a little bit about family doctors in Port Colborne and then healthcare services in Port Colborne. We'll talk a little bit about the proposal from the Lockview Medical Group, then development at the Niagara Health Port Colborne site, then primary care development in Port Colborne, and finally establishing a healthcare committee. So that sort of gives you a roadmap on what we will go through. So first, closure of the Port Colborne Urgent Care. So this probably won't be a surprise. We asked respondents, do you think Port Colborne requires an urgent care? We saw 84% of respondents say yes, and it should be open 24 hours a day. And then you see a number of others saying yes, and we think it should be open 12 hours a day. This question asked respondents, have you ever used health services at the Port Colborne Urgent Care before? And we see 64% noting that they had used the health services at the urgent care in Port Colborne within the last year. This question asked respondents, as a Port Colborne taxpayer, would you be willing to accept an increase to your property taxes to fund an urgent care center in Port Colborne? And we see 34% of respondents noting that they would accept an increase to their property taxes. And we see 23% saying maybe. So that indicates that we could have support for doing something like that. That said, this question didn't have any context to it. So it didn't say, could it be $1? Could it be $1,000? Doesn't have any context to it. So you'd need to look into that a little bit more and probe a little bit further to see what respondents meant about that. So when we go through some of those 11,000 comments for this topic around the closure of the urgent care center, these are some of the common themes that we see. So lots of respondents noted that they were concerned about the travel and distance to access healthcare in other areas. So I'm talking about the distance to other hospitals or other types of healthcare facilities, and noting that this was especially concerning for seniors or other vulnerable populations in the community. There were lots of comments about extended wait times in the emergency department as a result of closing their urgent care. So if those patients who would have been seen in the urgent care were redirected to an emergency department, the lines at the emergency department or the wait times at the emergency department would be longer. And some even noted that they would be concerned about a decline in the quality of care. There were comments around community growth in Port Colborne and either, the growth that we are experiencing or expecting, and noting that it didn't make a lot of sense to have the urgent care closing in tandem with that growth. And finally, there were comments on the emotional impacts or residents being very concerned about not having access to local health care, especially if they had chronic health conditions or young children. So I'll talk next about the local share contribution to Niagara Health, which again is the $6.2 million request from Niagara Health. So these are some of the comments that we received around that. So actually quite a lot of comments around the financial burden that this request places on residents, especially seniors. We heard lots about the geographical concerns, noting that the hospital is too far away to really benefit Port Colborne residents and that it wouldn't adequately serve their needs. So they didn't want to contribute the 6.2. There was some conditional support. So there were some respondents saying, okay, yeah, I'm in for the 6.2 million, but you have to keep the urgent care open. We saw lots of that sort of conditional support. And there were lots of comments on equity and fairness, talking about the per capita approach that Niagara Health used to determine the 6.2 million number, noting that per capita calculation is out of date and could place an undue hardship on communities that maybe haven't seen as much growth since the last census. So this question asked respondents, it said the amount of money each municipality is asked to contribute depends on its population. Port Colborne's been asked to contribute 6.2 million. Do you think we should? So you can see there's some answers on the left there. Yes, we should contribute. We should contribute from our property taxes. There were other, we should contribute but don't use property taxes. There were a couple options that said Port Colborne residents won't benefit, so we don't think that we should be contributing. What's interesting about this question is there were 366 responses in the other category. And we thought, well, that's kind of a high number. So we looked closely at those 366, and 287 of them could have been categorized in one of the options. So sometimes it was somebody saying, no, like truly no, this doesn't work out for me. This isn't what I believe. So we recategorized all of those that we felt comfortable saying, we think that these belong in one of the options, and it changes the outcome quite a lot. So you see not very much support. You see Port Colborne residents won't benefit from the hospital being the most common response by quite a lot. So the next topic is around family doctors in Port Colborne. This question asked respondents, do you think Port Colborne needs more family doctors? And we see 90% of respondents saying yes. This question asked, do you have a family doctor? And we see 50% reporting they have a family doctor in Port Colborne, and 46% responding that they have a family doctor, but they're not in Port Colborne. So this doesn't really tell us a lot other than who is responding to the survey. We do know from Niagara region that 10,000 residents in Port Colborne are reported to not have a family doctor in Port Colborne. This slide just kind of explains who's responding to our survey. This question said, how often do you see your family doctor? And we see 52% saying that they see their family doctor 2 or 3 times per year. And then this question asked, how long does it take to get in? We're seeing a large majority, more than 2 weeks. So on to healthcare services in Port Colborne. This question asked, do you think Port Colborne needs more healthcare options? And what would be the most beneficial to you and your family? We see lots of support for things like more family physicians, more family health teams, walk-in clinics, more diagnostics, and a new urgent care. Or I should say, an urgent care. So this picture is from one of our open houses. We had this board in the open houses, and we asked people that came to participate, we gave them a couple of dots, and we asked them to choose and help to prioritize what type of healthcare services should be in Port Colborne. So each person got a couple of dots, and they got to vote for their favorite options. I know it's a little bit hard to see on the screen, but I can tell you that the boxes along the top from left to right are more family doctors and nurse practitioners, an urgent care, and a walk-in clinic. And then in the bottom left there, you see x-rays and diagnostics. These are some of the comments that we received around healthcare services in Port Colborne. Many respondents noting that it was really important for the community to have well-rounded options like walk-in clinics, diagnostic imaging, and emergency care. No surprise. There was lots of support for expanded healthcare services, such as nurse practitioners or social workers, mental health services, and more comprehensive care in the community. Also, support for community health programs like hospice or palliative care or home care support. And again, lots of comments around the growing population in Port Colborne and the need for healthcare, comprehensive healthcare in Port Colborne. So on to the proposal from the Lockview Medical Group. This question asked, do you think the proposal could benefit Port Colborne residents? So we see 46% of respondents saying that they did think that the proposal from Lockview Medical Group could benefit Port Colborne residents. But what's interesting about this one is that we have almost 30% saying that they weren't sure. So this tells us that we need to do a lot more engagement, we need to do a lot more education and help and really look a little bit further into this question. These are some of the comments we got back. There were some supportive comments noting that, you know, the proposal from Lockview Medical Group could bring in better local healthcare service and reduce the need to travel out of town for medical appointments. There were comments on the economic benefits, like the opportunity for the clinic to bring in new jobs to the community. And the development of a medical center could also be seen as a way to minimize costs and avoid tax increases. The improved healthcare services piece, there were some supporters mentioning that the proposal could bring in enhanced healthcare services, which is similar to what I've mentioned already. But lots of people were asking for more information. So just like I've said, around this topic of Lockview Medical Group, it really does seem that more needs to be done, more needs to be explained to the community and communicated, and more engagement needs to happen in this area. So regarding the development at the Niagara Health Port Colborne site, this question said, what uses of the property could help generate revenue to fund the contribution to Niagara Health and be appropriate for the site? So we see 86% of respondents supporting pursuing a housing development with a medical center, and we see 47% of people skipping this question, which is quite a lot. So again, this shows us people didn't feel like they had enough information. Respondents didn't feel like they knew enough about answering. They didn't feel comfortable enough that they had enough to answer this question. That's a large number of people to skip this question. Some of the comments we heard regarding development at Niagara Health Port Colborne site, we did hear general support for the project, considering many people were considering it a good or a great idea. And lots of people noted that the property should come back under city ownership. We saw quite a good deal of comments about that. There were concerns around funding and the cost of the project and how it could potentially increase taxes. There were some concerns around infrastructure in Port Colborne, and what I mean by that is things like water, wastewater, roads, but also grocery stores and restaurants and parking and other amenities like that. So bringing in, another number of housing units. There were sort of concerns about the infrastructure. And finally, some concerns about affordability, with some respondents noting that it would be more appropriate to have affordable housing instead of luxury lakefront housing or condos there. So this is, again, a board that we used at the open houses. Now, you'll notice that this board has a lot fewer dots on it than the other board, and this kind of speaks to what I've mentioned around people feeling like they don't really have enough information to answer this question. That said, the most popular option when we're asking people that were participating in the open houses, what should happen to this property, the most common is this option for housing with a medical center. This question asked, would you support Niagara Health selling the site to a private developer? We see 74% of respondents saying that they thought the city should own the property instead of selling it to a private developer. So next is primary care development in Port Colborne. And this question asked, would you support the city pursuing the construction of a new primary care facility somewhere else in Port Colborne? So just like I talked about before with the number of other responses, we did the same thing where we reviewed the responses and we kind of recategorized them where it made sense. And you can see here, we see about 56% of respondents supporting the idea of the city pursuing a primary care somewhere else in Port Colborne, but with a funding strategy that does not impact the taxpayer. And then we see another 18% of respondents supporting the idea of pursuing construction with using funds from property taxes. These are, again, some of the comments that we heard. We did see respondents supporting a new facility in a different location, noting that it would bring in improved access to care in the community. There was some opposition to a new facility, with some respondents noting that they would prefer upgrades to an existing facility rather than building something new. There were, again, some conditional supportive comments. So residents were open to the idea, but wanted assurances about funding and also that there would be an urgent care option at a new medical center. And then finally, some concerns around funding, with lots of respondents noting that this might have been a better fit for a provincial or federal funding rather than local taxpayer funding. And my final section here is around establishing a healthcare advisory committee. This question asked, do you think council should formally establish a committee? We see 74% saying yes, so great support for that. Some of the comments we received around the healthcare committee noting that there's general support, diverse voices would ensure residents' needs are considered. There were some comments around the importance of representation and transparency, talking about a diverse group of people, including residents and healthcare professionals and local leaders, and asking for key points from the meetings and avoiding closed-door meetings. There were also some comments on community involvement, talking about the importance of the involvement of the community in decision-making, and noting that residents really do want their say in this matter. There were some concerns, again, around the appropriateness of the city tackling this issue versus other levels of government. And that's all for me. Back to you. Do you want that?
Sure. So thank you, Jasmine. I know that's a lot of information for council and everybody watching to digest. And I can only say, I think on behalf of all of staff and maybe on council, just thank you, Jasmine, for walking us through and the city through the process to capture that information to get us started. The topic we have, and I think council knows, and we've talked about it many times, is this is an interesting file because council, you have no legislative authority over healthcare, or very limited, I guess, at that. So moving forward, it's a complicated file to move forward on. When we go through what we heard, staff are putting forward that we recommend that a healthcare advisory committee be established. The terms of reference or a draft terms of reference are included with the report. That does follow a delegation that happened, I think, at the last council meeting asking for an advisory committee and followed much of the concept or asks with respect to that. That committee does have only 5 or maybe the word is not only, but specifically it's 5 community residents that would be then supported by staff at the city and health practitioners that can be brought forward at the request of the committee. So the terms of reference and the draft terms of reference are attached to the report. We're happy to answer any questions with respect to that. We've also recommended that given the importance of the file, that we do try to set a timeline if the committee is established, to try to come back with a draft proposal on some next steps for a healthcare service strategy, but to do that by the end of the year. Any draft would need public input. So to develop a draft will take time. And just to be clear, by the time we would establish a committee, the first committee meeting is probably not until June because there's going to be a posting period. The clerk is ready if council moves forward with the committee to be able to post immediately, but we're going to need to have a post period, we're going to have a selection period, and then we'll have to establish the meetings itself. So we would expect a meeting in June, and that would be a pretty busy committee to be able to come back with some sort of draft to be able to communicate publicly and get public input on by the end of the year. And some of that public input might realistically happen in January, February, but we'll leave it to the committee to advise on that. The other 2 items that we put forward are really with respect to provincial healthcare and advocacy. We have drafted a letter at the direction of council. We've looked at other letters that have gone forward. Fort Erie had a letter. So we have drafted a letter that incorporates the information that's unique to Port Colborne, including information with respect to the petition, and we're recommending the information with the petition be moved forward to the province. We are, and we have said, we are at Good Roads next week. The government is forming its government, and we are working on having an opportunity to speak to people within the healthcare file with respect to this topic. At that, I'll maybe open it up to, the proposed mandate. I guess we have a little bit more detail here that we can discuss at length if council has additional questions. So we'll open it up to questions. Myself and Jasmine will happy to take them.
Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the CAO. So when we're setting up this committee, we'll follow the same rules for other committees that we set up. This won't be a one-off. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, so through the mayor to the councillor, and the clerk can help me, but I think, and please jump in, I think the one difference is we are proposing that the committee would go for the period, would go for about 4 years roughly. It's not necessarily it would not end at the end of the council term, because there's going to be a lot of work for this committee to do, and right now the next scheduled election would be not this October, but the following October, and the file with respect to Niagara Health goes right out to 2028. So the one difference, and maybe the clerk can just confirm that, but I think the one difference is just the timeline. This would straddle 2 councils.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is correct. This committee will, like the CAO said, be there is an established sort of end date of 2029, I believe, whereas other committees were hoping to be following the term of council. So this one is different that way, but otherwise it is going to follow the same rules and procedures as all of the other citizen committees.
Councillor?
So just to that, because someone's going to ask me and I want to know, can we encumber the next council with the committee? Or can the next council, I just don't remember doing that. Maybe we have, but.
We have.
And I'm not saying it's not a good thing. I'm just wondering whether the next council could say, no, we want to have our own committee or whatever.
We have in the past done that.
Yeah.
Actually, it was Councillor Bruno that brought it forward a number of years back, that we staggered the committees so that not everybody was turning over at the same time. So.
Yeah, good. Okay, thanks. I'm done.
Councillor Bruno?
Thank you, Worship. Excellent job, Jasmine, your staff, Brian, everybody involved, the public. Certainly the outcome of those stats, as you rightfully pointed out, could need more drilling down to maybe get even a more fulsome feeling, particularly the youth, all of that kind of stuff. I'm super pleased with how this has gone so far. I just have one gnawing concern on all of this, and that is that council directs staff to forward the petition regarding the Port Colborne Hospital and Urgent Care Center received at the March 11th, 2025 council meeting to the Ontario Minister of Health. So, I don't want to necessarily, this isn't to diminish that it could be a good thing, but I believe that, you know, you only get a shot at making that first impression once. And when I look at this letter, and I sort of carry on four themes here that I think could be rectified with a delay in this, but I'll defer to the citizens here. So one is we're sending the Premier and the Minister of Health a letter, and it talks about whereas Port Colborne has 20,000 residents, just under 10,000 who are unattached to a primary health care physician. So I think we want to be focused. I realize you're going to good roads, and I realize there is a strong connection between the number of physicians and the use of an urgent care center. But I think this document mixes the two. Whereas I think if this is about urgent care right now, that we should stick to a focused approach. I'm also concerned that it lays a lot of emphasis on getting primary health care physicians, which obviously we're all supportive of. Again, I think it does a bit of a mixed message. You need both. We talked about you wanting to have this for good roads, but I think you've got a strong enough case to make, and I think that you're going to have more people sign this and contribute it. So if you were to send it, like the third paragraph is, whereas over 2,600 people have expressed their wishes, I would put something like so far. I also, what I'm not happy about with this letter is somebody in Toronto is gonna get this at the Ministry of Health, and they're gonna throw it back at the local Niagara Health System and ask for comments so they can give a bona fide answer. You know, at Good Roads, you're not gonna get answers from ministers. You really just, I think, have to place in front of them that this is going on. But our urgent care center, like, I think when you throw out, you know, that you've got 2,600 people, I'm not so sure that's the gravitas you want, when really you should be having Waynfleet in on this. You should be having other South Niagara in on this because they're using that urgent care. Like, I want to see the numbers bumped up when they see 2,600 people signed a petition to this. Like, I don't know how waiting a month or 2 months on this part slows any of this down. I mean, I don't want to dismiss the fact that we've got a couple years, but I want this first letter to be more impactful. I want more data. You know, I'm thinking, you know, we need to get some data experts in here and hire a firm. I think that foray to the province needs to be strong in the first instance. And I'm not so sure why sending this out tomorrow morning is a highlight to do this. It's also a bit confusing here, the last paragraph, where the Council of City of Port Colborne desires to request for continuation of funding for Port Colborne Hospital operations. So I would say, and urgent care. And do we want all the diagnostics? Yes. So I just think there's more to do with this first letter, and I don't want it to fall flat and look too weak. Again, it doesn't mention urgent care later on. And then summing up, where you want to make your strongest point, City of Port Colborne Mayor Council requests that the province of Ontario put a moratorium on the closure of urgent care centers and the implicit removal of primary health care services from the City of Port Colborne and small rural communities. That reminds me of getting letters that we get on correspondence. Would you endorse this? Like, I think you got to focus the fight. The fight's on Port Colborne and South Niagara. I just don't want to send a confused message or not enough fulsome of a message. I think you can tell them, you know, you've got huge community engagement. I do a executive summary of that and present it to the people you're talking to, as opposed to what I think is a weaker response out of the gate. I don't know what others think of that, but I don't know. I'd rather put a stronger foot forward in our first contact with the province.
Scholes?
Yeah, through the mayor to the councillor, I think, here's my thought on that. Council directed staff to move the petition forward and to put forward a letter. If we want to move forward and wordsmith the letter, council is, from staff perspective, we're more than happy to do it. It's an interesting position, right? Because the Health Care Advisory Committee will be the committee that will help make that recommendation on that strategy to take to council, so council can pursue. One of the key components of the terms of reference is to have that Healthcare Advisory Committee deal with that directly. So I guess the question would be how to proceed, because from our perspective, or what I put in front of council, is information that we took from other letters, Fort Erie for one, and the information that we received to move forward with. We can make the advocacy as strong or as focused or on one item or multiple items as council directs. I think the complexity we have is this period of time where the advisory group, should council move forward with, isn't in place to give that advice. And I think that's what we're going to have to reconcile with your comments. So maybe it's time. Maybe council is now asking us to wait for the healthcare advisory committee to be established and move through that. Alternatively, we move forward with the information that we have today and say that we'll be back with more information. And we adjust accordingly to say this is the information we have today that we've learned today, and there's more to come.
Counselor?
I think that helps with the context that this isn't our case. This is the beginning of the case. Having said that, though, you've got some great data in there that I think is stronger than here's 2,600 names. I'd rather put that great data and 2,600 names if you want to go with that. And if that takes 2 weeks, I'm just big on putting your first impression forward, that this is, you better take this seriously because, you know, it's not just Port Colborne, it's Wainfleet to the south. You know, we get into a lot of other things. So I guess I'm not convinced that, or I want to be convinced why this letter should be tomorrow morning and not in a month when we have more meat, or we wordsmith it. Having said that, I do recognize the issue that a committee isn't going to be put together, but there's lots stronger stuff in that survey than this. This can be an add-on.
So through the mayor, just to comment, I'm definitely not going to argue on the timing. I'll take council's viewpoint on the timing. I do want to point out that this is not going to be the first time the province heard that the city of Port Colborne and its residents are not happy with closing the urgent care. So this isn't actually like day one of the advocacy with respect to healthcare in the city of Port Colborne. This has been an ongoing issue, and I know everybody on council knows that. So from that perspective, this is a piece of a continuation, and this presentation that we're doing today, I can assure you, we'll have a phone call from Niagara Health and the province on it, and they'll ask us questions. So this information will be ongoing, and everything in here will be provided to the province in addition to. So please don't think of the letter as an isolated piece of information. If it's anything, it's a piece of information, a continuum of a process that's going to happen over a period of time, not going to happen overnight.
Counselor?
One last, because I want to hear what everybody else says in the public. Like, I don't discount that. This isn't the end of the world if we send it now. But if the government contacts Niagara Health, they're not mentioned enough in here as why they couldn't be part of the solution to urgent care, not to primary care and some space on the first floor. And secondly, I'd like some of those items in here because I don't want it to be looked at, another petition and Niagara Health or somebody can say, yeah, well, you know, they're just stirring the pot. I want to see that there's some gravitas to it. Particularly, I want to put some money towards this in the grand scheme of things to get, to really drill down in data points and things that will be impactful. So again, I'm not opposed to going along with it now. I'm just suggesting that it could be stronger and more fulsome. Thank you.
Counselor Baggett?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do agree 100% with Councilor Bruno. We need a stronger letter. Even a picture of people standing outside urgent care at 8 o'clock in the morning, 10 people waiting for it to open up at 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning. We need to hit them hard, drop it on their feet, whatever. I'll put some lead in it though. But as for the committee, I fully support the committee. I think it's great. And it's been mentioned that the committee meetings are open to the public, all public, and all the time. And would the committee have difficulty getting some stats from Niagara Health regarding urgent care? How many people are in there? How many people are waiting? Not only for Colborne, but for Welland, Fort Erie, Because I think when we get more stats, how Niagara urgent care and emergency rooms are over, hallway medicine, and I think that would add to us also. And somebody did mention to me, when all this first thing come through, I can't remember the doctor's name, he did a study, and he's the one that recommended we do all this work, but in the report, like this is just somebody told me, that he also advocated for 2 urgent cares to remain open in Niagara Peninsula. So maybe we can look at that also. But we got to get in the provincial government's face, Mr. Mayor, and give them a strong letter. And hey, we're coming back again at you again. Whether it's next week, we'll invite Dr. Philpott down to Port Colborne. Hey, let's take a walkabout. And I think the public has done great getting together on this, Mr. Mayor, and we got to keep at it. And I'm fully supportive of the 24/7 urgent care. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Aquilina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a few questions, but I would like to start off by saying I think you guys did really great work. I know it was a lot to put together in such a short time frame, but I really appreciate that you took the residents' concerns and that we're putting their voices, like to have a voice in this process, I think is so important. So I appreciate that. A couple questions I have are, will we be engaging with Fort Erie and Wainfleet, or is that something, like, would staff be doing that, or is that something that this new health committee would be responsible for?
So through the mayor to the councillor and all of council and everybody that's here tonight, the reality is I think we establish, or our recommendation would be to establish the Healthcare Advisory Committee and take direction from that. Because the alternative to that is we're going to have multiple streams going on. We did put in the report, like, we do anticipate that there will be costs. And whether it be students that we have to go do more door-to-door, or we have to go in, or realistically, I think we're going to need to bring on somebody to help work through, do data, and move forward with this, at least on a short-term basis, because this is a very important file for the city, and we're not necessarily established to put that amount of time into it. So my recommendation would be, I don't answer that. We use the Healthcare Advisory Committee and the residents on that to help give that direction, and then we resource that committee strong enough that they can move fast to be able to work through that process.
Okay. My next question is the mayor's health committee. Does that stop, or is it in conjunction with this new committee that would be formed?
Stopped. I've disbanded it.
And then my last question, and maybe it's for the clerk. I know you touched on it, Mr. Bowles, but maybe the clerk could explain the timeline to the residents about the committee and the application process, just so that they have a clear understanding of that.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, should council approve establishing the Healthcare Advisory Committee tonight, we will be posting an ad via social media tomorrow morning, and the application period will remain open until April 11th. Following that, we will sort through the applications and evaluate them, and a recommendation will be coming forward to council. My guess is later in May, with an estimated date of the committee first meeting in June.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bowles.
Sorry, through the mayor to the councillor, just to add, so we'll make sure, social media is great, but we'll make sure we have something posted at the library and the health and wellness and other city facilities and that, so that way if you don't, not on it, at least if you visit a city location or things like that, we will be able to get some information out. Oh, sorry, and I think I'm reading the lips of the clerk, and she is saying in the newspaper as well.
Okay, further questions? Councillor Hoyle.
Through the mayor, thanks staff for collecting all this information. It is a lot, I understand. I think we go ahead and throw the shots across the bow and get into the next, their next conference, get all this information to them, and get on to the health minister now. We can clean up as we go on as more information comes in, because there's more conferences lined up. And we know the mayor has separate conferences that he can do. And if he ever meets with a minister or ministers come down here for something, we can just keep hammering them and hammering them and hammering and hopefully get what we want out of it. One clarification, because I know the numbers that the region gave, the 10,000, that included residents that had doctors in Welland, I mean, outside of Port Colborne in that 10,000, so that actual 10,000 number would be lower, in theory.
Mr. Bowles?
I'll just say through the mayor to the councillor, that is correct. So that there's 10,000 people in the city, according to the Niagara region, that don't have a doctor in the city. And that's something that the Health Advisory Committee is going to have to work through, is any recommendations, how do you move forward with that? Because walk-in clinics have different models, urgent cares have different models, and primary care health teams all have different models, and those will all have to be brought forward with more education. So that's one of those numbers that I think everybody's looking for. How many actually don't have a doctor in the city? And that number seems to be difficult to put a finger on. So conversations will have to be had on how we actually determine that number.
Councillor? Councillor Bodnar?
Thank you. I agree that those numbers got to be correct. We can't be throwing out stuff there because people are going to look at that, and if they aren't correct, they're not going to pay a whole lot of attention to what we're doing. Can I also ask that when you put that ad out, can you send some directly to the Bethel Community Center and the Sherkston Community Center?
Absolutely.
Be nice to have rural representation on that committee also. Thank you.
For sure.
Thanks, Councillor. Further questions? Councillor Bagan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I forgot one. Lockview Medical Group, Dr. Vandenberg came in here a while ago, and there was, in his voice and his speech, there's a sense of urgency to relocate to the hospital. What's going to happen with this now? Does this go on hold until the committee decides or council decides, or?
Mr. Bowles?
Through the mayor to the councillor and council, it's a really good question. The reality is the doctor has individuals, other doctors that want to come, and there's a space requirement. And because we are moving forward with the Health Advisor Committee, it's very possible that the doctor brings something else to council in the meantime. Well, we don't have an advisory. I don't know. I don't have a line of sight on that. So we are, just as Councillor Bruno noted about the letter, maybe making some changes to the letter, in the absence of the advisory committee, we're going to move as fast as we can to get to that, if that's what council approves. But there is that period of time that the doctor could come back to council and say, I have my funding, I have my doctors, I need my location. And then that would have to be discussed. But right now, staff are putting forward, based on what we heard, and despite the interest in that you would work towards setting up the Healthcare Advisory Committee to comment on that before we move forward with a final decision. But again, there could be a time constraint, because depending on how that doctor's program works, there could be something that comes back, and we'll deal with that if we get that request.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To you, maybe we could look into that with Dr. Vandenberg, Mr. Mayor, and touch bases with him. I hate to see we delay it too long and something else happens and everything falls through to nothing.
Yeah, I know Mr. Long is in contact with them, so we'll keep going with that. But it is imperative that they get more space. They actually have 3 doctors now that they're talking to relocate to Port Colborne, or locate to Port Colborne, I should say relocate, but locate in Port Colborne. They are out of space where they are. There's 0 space there. So it is imperative that they get somewhere. And that is the only space that's big enough today in this community without building a new building that they can get into, so. Councilor Bruno.
Are we gonna be hearing from the public before a recommendation?
No delegation.
Okay, so I'm just wondering if there's a compromise on making a stronger letter. And that compromise is like 2 weeks with some wordsmithing.
Yeah, I was gonna suggest that when we go through this, you could actually take that section and put a date that is a little bit further out. You can still pass it all.
Yeah.
You could put a caveat within that one line there that if you wanna change it, that the council can work with staff to, so word is what you're looking for, is a little bit better wordsmithing.
I would, but I'd still like it to be, if we could have it for the next meeting, the wordsmith. If we could have it for the next meeting, the wordsmith, and people could come back and have a look at it, or it could get posted, like our agenda. And then I think we can get it in 2 weeks, but it will have more oomph to it and some more data points.
So with that, just, because we'll get this on the floor, it's on the floor, but we'll read it, then we'll add that, or we can ask that to be added as an addendum. So Mr. Bowles, is 2 weeks long enough to wordsmith the letter portion of this? Come back, I mean?
Drew, to yourself on that. Yes, the reality is our program works that we generally try to have reports done by the end of this week for the following council meeting, but we can work towards that. If councilors have any recommendations, because we're not working with the healthcare committee, and I hope that myself and communications have expressed that without a specific mandate or legislative authority within the city, we're doing our best to facilitate this. So we would appreciate any comments that council might provide to us with that, because that might help expedite the changes that council may be looking for with the letter.
I think too, I'm sure there'll be members of the community that could contact us to strengthen this and put a few points in. And then that way we can get something even more meaningful for 2 weeks.
All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read this out and then I'll ask for an amendment, Counselor. Okay? Further questions? Counselor.
Just to Mr. Bowles' concern that he's got to have it ready by Thursday. I don't think I'd see any counselor stand up and say, you can't bring that forward because you didn't have it ready for Thursday. So if it takes till the day of the meeting, take till the day of the meeting. I'm just saying that, okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Don't rush it. Okay.
Okay? Okay, yeah.
Just real quick. I'm sorry for being really quiet, but I'm just listening to everybody's opinions. There's a lot of moving parts to all of this. And my biggest question is with regards to Dr. Vandenberg and setting up in the hospital and having input from the advisory committee on that, how we work, is occupying part of the hospital tied to Niagara Health giving us the hospital back for $2, and is that contingent upon us guaranteeing them the 6.2 million? So before any of this moves ahead and down the road, what's the demand from Niagara Health? If you want room in the building, we'll give you the building for $2, but you have to give us the 6.2. Is that the demand from them?
Let me go to Mr. Bowles on that. Mr. Bowles? Or Mr. Long, either one of you?
I'll start, Mr. Long, if you want to finish, so through the mayor to the councillor. The reality is Niagara Health has had open conversations throughout the whole process. They do have a need. They need the 6.2. Have they drawn a line in the sand in any of my conversations with them? No. But could they? Maybe. So I don't know the answer to that, but it might be something we have to cross should we get to that. I will point out to council that with respect to the Lockview Medical proposal, the bigger hurdle was always that the doctor is nervous to go into a facility that he would do construction on, fix up, and be there for 3 years if they close the urgent care. And the doctor would be looking at the city to guarantee that we would have a location for the doctor after that. So council would have to take on that responsibility without, as Councillor Elliott, as you noted, we don't know what we're doing with the building yet. Because right now, as of today, our position is keep it open and let's have a healthcare advisory committee plan out next steps. So your question is extremely valid. So many things to consider with respect to that proposal, and that's where if that proposal comes in between now and the committee, it'll come back to council to consider all of those, and as staff, we'll try to have answers for them. Okay. But right now, because I don't have a final proposal, because I don't have a final answer.
Okay, through you, Mayor. And that's always been my biggest concern. Where's Niagara Health stand? Like, give us the bottom line so that we can decide and try to figure out what's our course of action. This is good. We want to demand UCC. Is that even on their radar? Or are they just hell-bent on getting rid of the building, closing it down, and demanding we want the 6.2 from us? That kind of seems to be, from my perspective, the focal point. If they just want us to pay the 6.2 and buy the building for $2, that's one thing. If we want them to keep it open, do they even want to do that? So there's those questions for me before we go down the road, and I want to see the committee struck and start working on it. But we need some concrete answers from Niagara Health, like demand from them. Give us your bottom line. What are you doing? What do you want? And what do we need to do in order to, if you're not going to keep the UCC open, then it's going to fall to us in some form. What's the deal? Like, put the deal on paper so that we can see what we need to do in order to get the ball rolling down the road. If they're not gonna go with UCC, what can we do to replace it? Is it the building that we have? Are they not going to give it to us, dependent on the money? And then, in one of the answers to the questions, would you like to see a new medical facility built somewhere else? And the majority of the people replied, yeah, that would be an option. So maybe we have another option that we're not focused just strictly on the hospital. So, I mean, there's a lot of things up in the air, and one could upset the other. So I'm just kind of interested in where Niagara Health stands on the money and turning that building over to us. That to me is one of the most important things. Dr. Vandenberg wants to move in, but can we guarantee him that space? What do we do in exchange for the space with Niagara Health? Right? Is it a guarantee that we're going to, buy the hospital for $2, and we got to give them the 6.2? So there's a lot of things that are not quite answered in concrete yet, but if we move along with that, it'd be nice to get those answers.
Thanks, Councillor. Mr. Long, anything to add?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, just to build on the CAO's comments and maybe to provide just a little bit of clarity for the councillor. Any conversations that I've had with Niagara Health over the last 12 months regarding the city leasing the West Wing and then subleasing to Dr. Vandenberg has been about and has been focused around improving access to primary care. There has been no discussion about linking that to the city's contribution to the Niagara Hospital. So it's always been about increased primary care.
Okay, further questions? Seeing none. So I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Bruno because he wants to do an amendment, and then I'll have the clerk read the amendment because she's taken what you've asked. So the Chief Administrative Officer report be received, and the council establish a healthcare advisory committee to ensure residents have adequate access to and knowledge of healthcare services in the city of Port Colborne. The council approved the healthcare advisory committee terms of reference attached as Appendix B. The council direct the healthcare advisory committee to propose a draft healthcare services strategy by the end of 2025, and that council approved the motion regarding provincial healthcare advocacy as outlined in the letter attached hereto as Appendix C. The council directs staff to forward the petition regarding the Port Colborne Hospital and Urgent Care Centre received at the March 11th, 2025 council meeting to the Ontario Minister of Health. So I've got Councillors Hoyle and Bruno putting that on the floor. Councillor Bruno, you want to do an amendment on the letter portion of this, correct?
Yes.
Councillor Hoyle, can you second that? Is that fine? Sure. Okay. Madam Clerk, do you want to read the addendum?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Please correct me if this wording is incorrect. So I have that council refer the motion regarding provincial health care back to staff in the CAO to add further data and bring back to council for consideration on April 8th.
Councillor?
Yes, I'd like to put a deadline to it so that we don't lose momentum and we get this out. Further to that, though, I would like that council may in turn take suggestions from members of the community to help formulate staff the next letter.
Yeah, I think that was kind of direction that staff picked that up when you were speaking. So, questions on the amendment? All in favor? Okay, carried. Now we're voting on the motion as amended. Further questions? All in favor? That's carried. And that's that. Okay. Thank you, staff members. Thank you, citizens, for coming forward tonight. So item 12.2 is Councillor Beauregard asked to bring this forward. Municipality of South Huron Heritage Advisory Committee, Amendment to Ontario Heritage Act and Niagara Lake support. Moved by Councillors Beauregard and Elliott. The council endorsed the Municipality of South Huron Heritage Advisory Committee, Amendment to Ontario Heritage Act and Niagara on the Lake support correspondence. Councillor Beauregard, anything to add to this?
Yeah, through your worship. So I'm not sure if all of council had an opportunity to read the letter that came with the item, but it essentially is saying that the heritage, you can't designate under the new legislation that came from the province, you can't designate property that is not already on the registry. And this is somewhat of a concern for Port Colborne, being on the Heritage Committee, that we've come to realize there are a lot of heritage items that were not on the registry that probably should have been, but were missed. This could include structures, not necessarily dwellings or lots, such as Fire Lane 1, I believe it was. I believe the pillars there are not designated, although one would assume they are. So there are other items that should be designated that aren't, and now we are sort of in a situation where we can't designate them because they weren't on the registry in the first place. So, and that has a lot to do with the history of the registry and how it was taken care of up to this day. So I guess my concern is that I would like to support this motion because there is a lot of heritage in Port Colborne, and we're working to pursue designation where required to conserve heritage in this city. So I would like, so again, I'd like to propose that we support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? Oh, I got Beauregard and Elliott. Move those, yeah. Sorry, but that's okay. No questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Councillor. Staff remarks. Madam Clerk, anything this evening?
Nothing this evening.
Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing from fire this evening.
Curtis?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple quick things. So I just wanted to advise council and the general public that we're going to be starting sweeping operations shortly. We started today, but a couple hiccups out there, so we're going to be starting that in the next day or two. So expect the street sweeper to be going full force over the next few weeks, and we should be cleaning things up nicely. As well as the ditching program. We're going to be posting the program for this year shortly on the website. So hopefully by the end of the week, we'll have that posted on the website, and that's for the ditching program for 2025, as well as the tree planting program. It's going to be starting in the next couple of weeks. So anybody who's getting a tree has received the door hanger, the maps associated on the QR code. The residents can reach out to staff and advise us if they would like a tree, more trees, or no tree. And then also discuss types with us as well. So that's out in full swing.
Great, thank you. Comms? Mr. Long?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Just a couple of things. I'm getting quite an echo over here. Okay. Just a couple of things. I think as Council are aware, our new Chief Planner started last Monday, Eric Och. Comes to us from Niagara Region, where he was a senior manager of planning there for almost 15 years. So our new chief planner is settling in. I know that he will be bringing forward a staff report sometime in April to provide council with an update on the official plan review process and next steps in that process. So stay tuned on that. Council recall that there was an announcement a couple of weeks ago regarding the Housing Accelerator Fund and the funding that the city is receiving from the federal government. That program is administered by CMHC. Staff will be bringing forward a staff report in the next couple of months to outline how those funds are to be spent, the initiatives that we're focused on, as well as some other projects that will receive some half funding. And then thirdly, I think it's been noted already, Mayor Steele and senior staff will be attending the upcoming Good Roads Conference in Toronto next week with the provincial cabinet just being sworn in last Wednesday. A lot of the ministers are not quite settled into their portfolios yet, and as a result are not available for delegation meeting next week. But we are working through the mayor and others to try and firm up some other meetings that I think would be beneficial for the city with some other ministers' offices. So stay tuned on that. I have been in touch with the Chief of Staff to the Minister of Health, and it is our intention to have some time with him to bring him up to speed on the conversation that we've had in our community around the future of healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Long. CAO.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say a quick thank you to yourself, Mayor, and Council. I think with some of these grants coming in, the public doesn't realize how much behind the scenes work you as Council and the Mayor do with our elected officials at the provincial and federal level to be able to make that happen. So from staff's perspective, we certainly thank the work that you're all doing on that. Another one that we just wanted to put out a big thank you to is Public Works. I don't know, and I know Curtis made mention to it, but I hope people realize how quick they are getting the parks ready this year. The benches are going out and that it's a phenomenal job that's going on. And a thank you to Cassandra and to Jasmine in communications. The wastewater open houses were very well attended. They were very constructive conversations that we had, and thank you to many of the councillors that came out to those. We are having a debrief with information we heard, and we will come back to council and talk about that. And I know staff are looking forward to, at some point in time down the road, having another one of these, maybe in the fall or as we go forward. One last thing is just on communication. There's a lot going on, but with some of the surveys and that wrapping up, we do have a new one starting up. Council gave us direction It's the backyard chicken survey, and they'll be up tomorrow morning. So if anybody is interested in filling that out and letting us know from a city perspective, if you're interested in having chickens either in your backyard or in your neighbor's backyard, we're interested to hear from you. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. On to councillors' remarks. So I think I started with Councillor Bodnar last week, or last meeting, did I not? No? Start over there? Okay, I'll start with you then, Councillor Bodnar.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Everything is,
Tickety-boo?
everything is okay. Staff is taking care of all my problems.
Councillor Hoyle.
I'd just like to say, thanks staff for, all the, work on these, open houses that we've had. They did a great job. Besides that, Ward 2 is good.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott.
I'm good except for one thing I had forgot to mention with the healthcare. Whatever form our petition takes, with the people that we copy, I was gonna ask, can we send copy to the Ontario Medical Association? It would be good for them to know, the Doctors Association, what we're doing and what the ask is. I know that
Sure, we can include that, yep.
they had come down into the city a month or so ago, and I think we're talking with some doctors, so it would be, I think in our best interest if we let their association know what we're asking for. That's all. Everything else is good.
Councillor Murrow.
Thank you, Worship. I didn't have anything till I met a member of the gallery this evening who reminded me, who put in an earlier request, and that is to do with the Vail Center and security in there. So the particular lady almost got ran over standing watching a game during the week, and there was really no one apparent as to where to go. I think the kids were sort of in that preteen age group, but unattended with parent. And I mean, I've seen it when my grandsons are playing and it's a busy Saturday, you know, often there's 2 other kids in the family who are out playing with other kids in the hallways and that, and the parents are watching the game. And so I don't know if we could have, the lady indicated to me that she went down to the Y, and they got someone from the city who was in the building. But the area apparently where it took place at one of the ends is not visible on our cameras, so they were told. So the 2 long stretches were, but the ends were not. They found the kids and had to talk to them, but I don't know if we could either look at some more cameras in there or cameras that the Y would have. I don't know what's behind their desk. I know they're not city employees, but if it's another set of eyes on what's going down, they can pick up the phone and maybe call the city attendant. So I don't know, Curtis, if you or your staff could, if you've had any other reports, if we could do something in there to just ensure people are obeying the rules, particularly the young ones running around doing what kids do, play tag, but there's nobody there actually other than what should be a parent taking control of that situation. So if there's anything we could do, I was asked to pass that on, and maybe there's other people out there who've had similar situations. Maybe we have to look at a plan there for future cameras or tying it into the Y, or you know, maybe it's security on busy game days.
Thanks, Councillor. Curtis, you'll take that back, talk to Mr. Jouet. Bring him on board with that one. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bagu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I had a talk with Alana last week during one of our open houses regarding the Eagle Marsh drain, the engineer's report coming back to the city, and I had mentioned what the status was, and apparently the North of the States drain that went through, there's one property owner that's doing went to the tribunal. So that's going to delay this report coming back to council until the tribunal takes care of it. So just for people listening that are on the Eagle Marsh drain, Mr. Mayor, because I know they've been waiting for it, but wait a little bit longer. Next, Mr. Mayor, through you to Curtis. Thanks, Curtis, in your public works. I see a little bit of work's been done on Kent Street regarding the pylons. that's been there since our sidewalk repair last fall, and I know they're buried in the snow, but I drove by today and I see somebody's been doing some landscaping there, so I know it's ongoing. The last thing, Mr. Mayor, don't really want to bring it up, but with the United States imposing tariffs against our country and plans for maybe more radical tariffs coming soon, April 2nd, is our municipality planning on having a discussion regarding what our municipality can do? I guess it goes to the CAO, Mr. Mayor, regarding whether we keep flags up with the municipality, whether we don't have travel of municipal employees to the States until this is taken care of, or I think this tariff's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, but it seems to change every day, every day, Mr. Mayor. I shouldn't watch CNN because I just get confused anyways, but it's not as confusing as the Canadian politics right now, Mr. Mayor, so I'd rather watch CNN. So maybe the CEO could mention about this tariff thing.
I think we can both give you some insight. So I serve as the Ontario Caucus Chair for the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative. And actually, we will be hosting our annual general meeting in Milwaukee this year, which I'll be attending. Its membership are municipalities from across Quebec, Ontario, and 8 Great Lakes states. So the consensus with our organization is we don't want the tariffs, and this is both U.S. and Canadian, obviously us for sure, but our U.S. counterparts. We work very closely with the governors of those 8 Great Lakes states and their legislatures. So we actually have had meetings. We were down, I wasn't there this year, but we had a meeting down in Washington with a number of our board members and mayors, with a number of senators, congressmen and women, as well as representatives in the president's office. So that's ongoing, and the consensus through our organization is that this is not good for both countries. We're also members of the Marine Chamber of Commerce and the Ontario Marine Council. We actually have representation. The new chair is actually from Niagara. It's a person that works with Algoma. She's taken the chair this year. And again, we're working very hard through those organizations with our counterparts in the U.S., both within and outside of government. Today, at the opening in Toronto, in St. Catharines, we had the Consul General of the U.S. from Toronto. He actually spoke with his staff. He's actually coming to Port Colborne this summer. He was invited to our opening ceremony, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. But he was there today, and I actually sat with him for about 15 minutes, and we discussed this. And he does trade between, his main focus is trade between Canada and the U.S. So he sees how this is affecting us on this side, but he also sees how tariffs are affecting costs in the U.S. also. So, he seems like an ally that's on our side, but we look forward to hosting him here in Port Colborne this summer. He'll be bringing his staff here. I was actually introduced to his chief of staff at the Marine Week in Toronto in January, so that's how we set that up. Originally, as I said, they were going to attend our canal opening, but his schedule didn't call for it. But these are positives on our end in making sure that our U.S. counterparts are on the same page as us and giving the same message to their government as we're giving to ours to take to their government. So whether it's through the province of Ontario or our federal government, I mean, we know there's a bit of a hiatus right now with the election, but as things move forward, you're going to see more and more happening with that between them. And you're right. I think every day Mr. Trump wakes up, it's a different idea. And listening to some news today through the U.S. is the fact that out of his office that looks after setting the tariffs for April 2nd are actually going to be a lot less than we anticipate. But again, that's today. Who knows what happens tomorrow? So, Mr. Bowles, do you want to add to that?
I'll just add that, as I mentioned before, we've always had a buy local model. We've always tried to support local purchases, and we continue to do so. There are some items that there is no substitute for, and we do work with our American counterparts and that on that. The city is an interesting one because I can tell you from anecdotally, when the mail strike happened, the number of we delivered by hand the water bills and property tax and that bills, and got to speak to a lot of residents across the city when we're doing that. But there is a lot of individuals that own a property that they have residency in the States and in Canada. So we have a lot of taxpayers that are American, as well as a number of Americans, organizations that rent at the Valley Health and Wellness Center. So we have a number of customers to which we integrate with every day. So I just put that information forward to council to know. And all the municipalities are working on a buy local program to help support, and our economic development team will be reaching out to the BIAs because that information is being put together so we can work with the BIAs to try to help to make sure our residents know about the good work and the items that are being sold within our communities and within the city of Port Colborne to be able to move forward. So there is a number of activities that we're able to do behind the scenes, and that's what we're working on. So it's not, we may not talk about it every day, but it is something that's ongoing.
The other thing we're doing through, with Gary and Bram, is we're discussing what's going on with our manufacturing sector here. So whether it's Oscom Steel, which actually has a new owner from Kentucky, so they're a US-owned company, whether it's Young Buns Lauer, JTL Machining, Thurston Machining. Another big aspect is our marine industry through Allied Marine. Right now, the US wants to impose $1.25 million surtax on any ship that was built in China when they come into a port within the United States. That does affect us here because the majority of ships that Algoma and CSL have been built over the last number of years in China. There are other groups. There's a Quebec group called FedNav. The majority of their ships are Japanese built, so they're not affected. But we've also found that Europe right now is getting together and they're going to start bolstering their manufacturing of lake ships, both like Lakers and also those that can carry containers. So what we call short sea shipping boats. So, you have the large ones that come over with thousands of containers. They can break those down and put them onto a smaller ship, and then it can get in through the Great Lakes and come to both Canadian and US ports. So they're ramping that up. Just to give you a little context to this, and what I've learned over my time in the marine industry with regards to the organizations that we belong to, is the fact that it took China 20 years to put this together. This doesn't happen overnight. So in talking to my counterparts in the States, like Trump thinks he can start building ships tomorrow in the US. China's done a good job at this. They've built this whole shipping industry around a whole generation of their workers coming up. Now they're working on the next 20 years because now there's going to be another generation that needs to come forward after this crew starts to retire. So it doesn't happen overnight. We saw what happened at Port Weller. We saw what happened in Collingwood and in Thunder Bay with regards to shipbuilding in Canada. The U.S. Does have a number of shipbuilding dry docks in the Great Lakes. They're building a lot of U.S. Naval vessels right now, Coast Guard cutters, icebreakers. So that's a good thing, but they're not all set up to build Great Lakes ships that we see that come through every day. So this is a whole long-term plan. I mean, we do have Ontario Shipyards, which is the old Heddle Marine at Port Weller, which is getting back into the shipbuilding business here in Niagara. We have our East Coast in Halifax and other areas of the East Coast, Irving shipyards that are out there. And then we also have out in the West Coast in and around Vancouver where they do build, but most of those are ocean-going ships or naval vessels and Coast Guard cutters. They're not Great Lake ships. So it's far and few between right now to find one of these companies that can actually build it within Canada or the United States. So this is a long-term process for us. It's not going to happen overnight. They're trying to get that through the president's head with regards to specifically ships for the Great Lakes, is it can't happen overnight, Mr. President. It can't. We don't have the capacity today. We don't, and it's going to be years before that capacity comes back. So, these are things that we work on with the Ontario Marine Council and the Canadian Marine Chamber of Commerce. Getting that across. We've got governors on our side. We've got legislatures on our side, especially in 8 Great Lakes states. So, but it's going to take time. But again, the problem is who's sitting in the president's chair today, and what happens today may not be what happens tomorrow. So, I know what you're saying. We're these guys and our staff here. We got a hell of a team here in Port Colborne. I think you can see that with what's going on here. The companies that want to come here, the investment both the provincial and federal governments are making in Port Colborne. But we still need to advocate moving forward with our organizations to put pressure on politicians on both sides of the border.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Shows you how old I am. I still remember them building ships in Collingwood. Actually, when I buy groceries, I look at the list, the days of where it's made and everything else. And I think I see a lot of residents of Port Colborne do that also, Mr. Mayor. And I think it's great. And try to buy locally, try to buy Canadian or Ontario. And it's great to see our CEO mentioning about what our staff does. We try to buy local, number one first. So I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Borgard.
Through your worship, just kind of piggybacking here on the whole tariff situation with the United States. At our last Niagara Transit Commission meeting, Chair Bradley was sitting and also brought up the conversation on procurement, and that's typically where municipalities are dealing with the states. And essentially, he referenced Steve Pakin's The Agenda episode that specifically had 3 panelists that discussed this. And essentially, it's a long-term approach that municipalities should be taking. But I haven't done so myself yet, but I would suggest that maybe some people, if they're interested, watch that podcast or that episode with The Agenda. On another item, just about heritage, since we brought up that correspondence, we do have the committee, Heritage Committee, has been working hard on looking at properties for designation, and council should be seeing reports soon coming in. So I know Diana's working on it, and so they should be coming in within the next few meetings, I would think. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Councillor Aquilina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have lots of thank yous I want to send out. First off to Public Works, Curtis, for the property that I brought up last council meeting on Kalali and Miller. I really appreciate the lengths that you went to get that resolved. My next is to Jasmine and the communication team. Congratulations on your award. I think that's great, and hopefully we see more for this Canal Days. And then lastly, I just want to emphasize how happy I am about community engagement. I know myself and a couple other councillors have brought this up a few times, and I really think the more community engagement we do, which I know is a lot of work, but it just emphasizes transparency with residents, and I think it shows that we value their input in how we do things in the city. So thank you very much for doing all of that work.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any notices of motion this evening? Okay. Bylaws, if I could have Councillors Hoyle and Begg and move that the following bylaws be passed and enacted as presented. Bylaw 73312225, 73322325, and 7332425. Questions on any of the bylaws? All in favor? That's carried. And we now adjourn this meeting of council. Thank you.